Thank you. Senator van Turnhout, you have 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, and you're very welcome, Minister, to the House. And I'd also like to echo and give my full support to this motion. And in particular, I'd like to thank the Labour Group, but particularly Senators Maloney and O'Keefe, who have proposed and seconded this motion, and I can wholeheartedly endorse everything that they said. So I suppose the first thing I'd like to raise, Minister, is in relation to the Istanbul Convention, the Council of Europe Convention on Preventing and Combating Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence. It's been open for signature since May 2011. As Senator Maloney has said, 29 Council of Europe member states have signed the convention, but only 4 have ratified to date, and it needs 10 ratifications in order to come into force. The Convention is the first legally binding instrument providing a legal framework to protect women against all forms of violence, and includes obligations from the state with regard to prevention, protection and provisions of support and assistance. And it recognises violence against women as a gender-based violence and discrimination. And it also recognises that equality between women and men is a prerequisite for prevention. And the Convention obliges the state to fully address all forms of violence and to take adequate measures for prevention, protection and prosecution. And in preparing for today's debate, I tried to work out why will Ireland not ratify this, because these are all very laudable and worthy aims, and that everybody in this House has so far echoed, and even in the counter motion, it's all echoing it. My understanding is that Article 52 of the Istanbul Convention, which is relevant to emergency barring orders, has some conflict with property rights under the Irish Constitution. And I would ask maybe the Minister could elaborate what exactly are the problems. We're part of the Council of Europe. Why did we not raise these issues when the Convention was being drawn up? Can we seek to maybe clarify our law to ensure, because for me it is unacceptable that Ireland is not in a position firstly to sign and secondly to ratify the Convention. So I would like clarity. I'm all too tired of hearing that the Irish Constitution is a block to doing good things and to doing the right thing. For me, this is the right thing to do. Speakers before have mentioned the situation for women and for men. Obviously, with my children's rights background, all too often I've seen the direct effect, either directly of domestic violence on children or that witnessing of the direct domestic violence. And we saw with the Safe Ireland figures last year, nearly 8,000 women and over 3,000 children sought safety from domestic violence in Ireland. And just to focus on that word safety, I try to put myself into the position, trying to look at Ireland, the resources we have, the laws we have. If you were in a domestic violence situation, the likelihood is it could be at a weekend. Addiction issues are often a problem intertwined, whether it's gambling, alcohol or drugs, so they can play a part. So where are the services and imports on those issues? You call for the guards for help. What can the guards do? We know the pressures on Garda resources. Where are the refuges? And several of the speakers before me have mentioned the issue of refuges. I know in many rural areas there are none, or where they are, they're being run by volunteers, dedicated women who have come together to provide a local support, and they are getting no support from the state. For me, the woman in the most usual case has to give a statement. Either there or within 24 hours, the facilities for doing that in an appropriate place, where the children won't be a witness to that statement. All these intertwining issues, psychological, counselling services, safe refuge, and it's not just for City of Dublin. It's right around the country that there is that safety, there is that place, that if you know, you do pick up the phone. And if you are in an abusive situation, it's not a planned situation. People say, oh, well, they have their wallet, or they could check in here, or they could do that. It is a situation that has happened like that. And I just counter one I give to you, which was in the Office of the Minister for Children at the time. It's now the Department of Children and Youth Affairs. But in 2007, they did an excellent report on listening to children, children's stories of domestic violence. And what really alarmed me in the report was several mothers reported violent episodes while they were holding young children, raising obvious concerns for their physical safety and child protection concerns. One mother of 2 children, who were aged 4 and 6, outlined an instance when she came home from hospital with her newborn baby. And she said, and it's in this report, a government state report, he took to ranting and raving and screaming and shouting around the bed. I was holding the baby in my arms and I was feeding him. The father jumped out of the bed and he came over and he grabbed the baby and he had him out of me like this, so that his little head was hanging down and his legs were... It was very traumatic for me because I sort of felt that I'm the mother now and I couldn't protect my own child. Now, then tell me about the resources, that when that woman goes and looks for help, what are the resources that we have in place? How do we ensure that time, because we know in domestic violence, it's repeated victimisation. The woman doesn't necessarily, on the first call, pick up the phone and get everything sorted out. We know all the reports. We know the figures. So for me, it's where will we get help, but also where do we change attitudes? And just on the issue of attitudes, I was relating a story recently to a colleague in relation to a domestic violence situation. And the colleague actually said to me, and I'm still stunned, would they not give it a second go, the relationship? And we have to challenge that in society. That saying this, well, would she not give it a second go, whereas maybe she was a little bit more complicit and maybe had the dinner on the table, maybe it wouldn't happen. As I said, there are many countering factors, and we do need to ensure that we have the adequate responses with the refugees, but also the wraparound supports and services for the women, for the children, and for the men, whether they are victims, but equally if they are abusers. We know from figures, especially young children, they have conflicting emotions. They love their dad. They want to be still part of it. Is it safe that they're still there? Are we going to support the dad? So we need to look at this as a family issue and not just in isolation. So I would like to wholeheartedly endorse this motion put forward this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.